Where will Jim Harbaugh be next year? That's going to be a dominant storyline. It already has been. The moment he hired Don Yee, who has a reputation and a history of representing people in the NFL, that was the signal. And so many people, and I understand if you're a Michigan fan and you don't want Jim Harbaugh to leave, you're going to interpret any development as a sign that he's going to stay. Oh, no, he hired Don Yee to get this contract done and stay with Michigan. Look, if the contract was going to get done, it would be done by now. At best, if you wanted to stay at Michigan, he's going to use every ounce of NFL interest to leverage the best possible deal that he can. But what does he really need to do? He's just won the championship. Like, how much more can you squeeze out of Michigan based upon the fact that the Carolina Panthers want to interview him? So I think this is based on his own words from the past, Charean. He has said he's got unfinished business at the NFL level. He has painted the picture of the Super Bowl being a bigger deal than the college football championship. And, by the way, and I'm not just saying this because the show is PFT Live. We haven't identified ourselves. If you're here, you know it's PFT Live, Peacock, Sirius XM 85, Sky Sports, NFL, podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. The Super Bowl is a bigger deal. Just look at how many more people watch the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is a cultural phenomenon. College football national championship, big deal. Super Bowl, bigger deal. And he lost it in this Shakespearean battle with his brother. He wants to get back there and reverse the one glaring blemish on his coaching resume, losing a Super Bowl. He wants to go back and win. So he was asked that specific question, as he has been in different ways. I got to give the reporter credit here. Instead of asking him about the future, or are you going to entertain NFL jobs, or what about this one, what about that one, what about this one? Yeah. He was asked, do you want to add winning a Super Bowl to your resume? Here's what Jim Harbaugh had to say.
I just want to enjoy this. And I hope you give me that, Can a guy have that? Does it always have to be, what's next? What's the future?
Yeah.
Yes.
Look,
it does.
If he was definitely staying, he would say, I think he's definitely staying. But yeah, it is fair. That's part of it. When you have allowed this situation to create itself, like no one's ever going to ask Nick Saban that after winning a championship, because they know, based on how he has conducted himself, he isn't going anywhere. Jim Harbaugh 2 years ago packed up and went to Minnesota thinking he was getting the Vikings job for that interview that didn't work out. Last year, he gets interviewed in Ann Arbor by Greg Penner of the Broncos. He's been flirting with the NFL for the past couple of years. And this year, he's operating from a much greater position of strength, Charean. He's going to have multiple teams that are interested in him after he did what he did. And after he's shown, and I think this gets overlooked, he's shown he knows how to get a roster full of NIL-era college players to set aside and fully embrace team. And that's critical because these guys are making it into the NFL now. And I've heard one of the cultural issues for NFL teams is kind of reverse engineering and undoing the mindset that guys are acquiring in college now. It's harder to get them to embrace team at the NFL level. Jim Harbaugh can do that.
Well, the other thing, Mike, that we haven't touched on yet is the looming NCAA investigations, a level 1 and a level 2. And, Michigan did their part in suspending him for 3 games, but that's not going to be enough in the NCAA's eyes. So I think that's going to play into this, too, and push him toward the NFL. He wants to go anyway. You're right. He wants to win a Super Bowl as much as or more than he wants to win a national championship now that he's done that. But I think the looming NCAA investigations are definitely going to push him to the NFL. I don't think there's going to be any question. The Vikings, the Broncos, I think there was probably a little bit of question in his mind that he hadn't finished what he started at Michigan. He's done that now. He's finished what he wanted to do at Michigan. He's won them a national championship. He's done it. A lot of these players are leaving after this year. It's just like in the NFL, free agency, that's what they have, NIL, and then their players also go to the pros. He's going to lose much of this team for next season. Could they go back and repeat? Absolutely. I mean, he's shown that he's got a consistent program at Michigan. He's shown he's able to do it over a 3-year span now. They've been contenders. But I just think that this is the right time for him to go to the NFL, Mike, and finish the unfinished business he now has in the NFL. He's done that in college, turned down the last 2 pro jobs that he probably could have had if he really wanted them. He could have had a pro job over the last 2 years. He obviously didn't want that, but he's done what he needed to do in college football, and now these investigations loom, and I think he's headed to the NFL. I don't think there's any question. To me, the question is, where is he going?
Scott Van Pelt interviewed Jim Harbaugh after the post-game press conference, of which we played a clip. One thing Harbaugh said is they're pushing spring practice back by a month, and he cited the wear and tear on the players, but also it gives the program even more of a runway to adjust to his departure and whoever they will hire to replace him, and it gives him a little more time on the front end as well to let the offers come, to figure out where the best place is for him, because he's going to be looking to find a spot where he believes he's got the best chance to climb the mountain. And I thought of this last night. Is he going to prefer an NFC team so he won't have to cross paths with his brother on a more regular basis? If I ever see my brother again, it's going to be in a Super Bowl, not in a playoff game. I don't want that. I've already done that. I don't like that. I don't know. But we've got the vacancies lining up. Chargers, he wanted the Chargers job last year. Chargers didn't have a vacancy. There were multiple big-name coaches who wanted to go work with Justin Herbert. Harbaugh was one of them, I'm told. I was told a year ago. The Raiders, that's where he started his coaching career as an assistant more than 20 years ago after his playing career ended. They're looking for a coach. Antonio Pierce, I think, deserves a shot. But if you're looking at Jim Harbaugh, possibly going to a division rival, and this is your moment to get him, and it may never come around again, it's a tough one for Mark Davis to resolve. The Panthers are looking and have been looking. The Commanders have an opening. They've got this committee they're forming, and I don't know how well Jim Harbaugh is going to work with a committee, and they're talking to him and asking him questions, how patients are going to be. Kind of like to be in the room for that. The Falcons also looking for a coach, and there may be other teams, just because we're past Black Monday, which the Falcons took very literally. There could still be other jobs come open. The Bears may decide to make a change if they think they can get Jim Harbaugh. See, this is the problem with striking the balance between the proper way to conduct a coaching search, where it's open, it's deliberate, it's inclusive, and then you've got the owners who say, well, if I can get that guy, I'll make the change. If I can't, I don't want to make the change. So before I fire my coach and go through a search for 2 or 3 weeks, I'd kind of like to know. I'd kind of like to have sufficient winking and nodding that I can trust that I know I'm going to get the guy I want. And I'm not saying that's what the Bears would do, but it just made me think of that dynamic. You may have a team that views Jim Harbaugh as an upgrade, but they don't view their current coach as somebody who needs to be fired. And you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you move on from a guy who's good enough in order to get a guy who's great, and then you end up with someone lesser than the guy you had if you would have known you couldn't get the guy you wanted to get. So there could be some of that, and we know that stuff happens behind the scenes. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. They do all sorts of stuff that we might find out about later or never find out about. So there could be other teams as well. When I asked somebody over the weekend who's pretty plugged into the way the sausage is made in the NFL, Chargers, Raiders, Bears, Patriots. I was very surprised by the inclusion of the Patriots. Not so sure about that. But you know what? After 24 years of Bill Belichick, Jim Harbaugh is probably a breath of fresh air in New England.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's going to have his choice of jobs, Mike. When you look at the coaches of Jim Harbaugh wears out his welcome. I get that. But you know what? He also wins. He won in the NFL already. He's not like a college coach who's coming into the NFL, a Chip Kelly, where we don't know. We know. We have evidence. 44-19-1 with the 49ers. 13-3, 11-4-1, 12-4, and 8-8. He won at the NFL. He took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. They had a chance to win that game. It was a great game. So, you have evidence of how good he's going to be in the NFL. So if I'm one of these owners of a team that's thinking about changing coaches, I'm going to be interested in Jim Harbaugh. Whenever you change a coach or change a quarterback, you better be sure that the next guy you get is going to be better than the one you had. Jim Harbaugh is better than most coaches in the NFL right now, half of the coaches in the NFL right now. So if you're thinking about making a change, Chicago, you're right, comes to mind. Matt Eberflus, it looks like he's going to stay right now. But if they have any interest in Jim Harbaugh, they better act now and make that move. And if I'm Jim Harbaugh, the Bears look very enticing to me with the draft picks they have and everything else, some of the players they have in place. I like the Bears' job. Commanders, to me, might be the best job of all because right now they're projected to have 85 to 90 million in cap space. They have all of those draft picks, 9 draft picks, 5 in the first 3 rounds. So you can get a quarterback. Yes, you're going to start a rookie quarterback, but that's fine. Get the coach that you want, get the quarterback that you want. So, Mike, I just think he's wherever he wants to go. I think that team should be interested in him and pay him however much he wants to be paid to take that job.
You mentioned one of the narratives about Jim Harbaugh, how he wears out his welcome. He did make it 9 years in Michigan, and they would keep him if he wanted to stay. And look, Jim Harbaugh is kind of a quirky guy. I get it. He can get a little feisty, rubs people the wrong way. Well, you know what? Great football coaches tend to do that. They tend to be a little demanding. They tend to be a little difficult. They tend to want to win, and they want everyone around them to be as committed to the cause as they are. And guess what? That creates friction if there's anybody who the coach thinks isn't doing what needs to be done, isn't living it the way it needs to be lived. When you want to go out there and win, and your main focus is winning, there are going to be some personality issues. The challenge for the team around him, more importantly, those above him in the organization, is to figure out how to work with him. And I am no Jim Harbaugh apologist. Now, my bias is I think the NFL is far more interesting with Jim Harbaugh in it. But it doesn't make it interesting because everything's great and he's going to be somebody who gives us a lot of access, and I can text him and he'll text me back and we'll have him on the show and it'll be great and he'll be funny and he'll be engaging. No, he's an intriguing, compelling, dramatic presence who is successful. And shame on the 49ers. Said it before. Shame on the 49ers for not finding a way to make it work with him, for deciding after 3 years this isn't going to work long term. Even though NFC Championship, Super Bowl, NFC Championship, by 2014, they were ready to move on, almost traded him to the Browns. If he wanted to go to the Browns, he would have gone to the Browns. He would have been the Browns coach in 2014 instead of finishing out that year in San Francisco where right after the season ended, they announced the mutual parting. And he said, there's no mutual parting. They fired me. They were done with him. They were done dealing with him. They didn't want to figure out how to navigate around his ego, his eccentricities, his temper, whatever. Meanwhile, his brother's been the coach of the Ravens since 2008, and they're exactly alike. They present it differently, but they're exactly alike. They're every bit as competitive and driven and motivated and prickly when they need to be prickly. Sometimes, coach has to be an ass. Sometimes, coach has to get in your face. Sometimes, coach has to tell other people who aren't pulling their weight the way they need to, what they need to do in order to get the ship moving in the right direction. So when you get a coach who has proven he can get it done, shame on you if you fail to figure out how to keep him around for the long haul. Because, look, 49ers are doing well now. Now, they went through some crap with, who was the defensive, Jim Tomsula, Chip Kelly, and, with Kyle Shanahan, they haven't won a Super Bowl yet. It's easy for me to say this because it can't be proven untrue. They would have won one by now if they'd have kept Jim Harbaugh for the last 11 years. I'm very confident of that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I think they would have, too. And it took him, obviously, a while to get it going in Michigan. In 9 years, he's been there and finally won the championship. But they were competitive, obviously, before that. So I agree with you. I think if he had stayed in San Francisco, they would have found a way to win at least one Super Bowl and continue the dynasty that they started there with Joe Montana and Bill Walsh way back when. So, it's unfortunate they couldn't work it out. You talked about quarterbacks needing a fit for wherever they go. Vince Young wasn't a fit in Tennessee. I still think, even though an Aggie, I think Vince Young could have been a very good NFL quarterback. He went to the wrong place and it ruined him. And he didn't have a good NFL career. I think it's the same for coaches. I think it's got to be a fit, and it's got to be the right place, and it's got to match. So I don't know where that is for Jim Harbaugh, but he's got to figure that out. Who can he work best with of these teams that have openings, and do the research and talk to these people and figure out where it's going to click for him. And you're right, maybe it's not Washington because of all the people involved in that search. Maybe he doesn't want to deal with all those different people that he's going to have to deal with in Washington. Maybe it's somewhere else. But wherever it is, Jim Harbaugh's going to be successful, Mike. It may take him a few years. If they stick with him, whatever team he goes to, I can guarantee will win a championship. They have to stick with him long enough, but if they do, they will win a championship.
The post-Mike Singletary 49ers, 6-10 going into 2011. Yeah. And Jim Harbaugh instantly took them to the brink of the Super Bowl. They lost to the Giants in a game with a couple of muffed punts. Remember all that? They could have gotten there. The next year they did. They could have won it. The next year they had an epic battle with the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks ended up going to the Super Bowl and winning it. So it's there for the taking. Harbaugh's good enough to make it happen. The NFL is more interesting when he's in it. And, yeah, the question is, where does he go? Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.